the meeting of the Economy, Environment and Infrastructure Committee of Tuesday the 10th of March. Can I remind members the meeting is being recorded and will be subsequently made available to the public for listening at a future date. Do we have any apologies? Jim?
Apologies for Councillor Geddes, he's unable to make it.
Okay, thanks very much, Jim. And can I welcome Yen to our first meeting of the committee? Any other apologies, Patsy? Okay, folks, do we have any declarations of interest? No? Okay. Just before we go into the main items on the agenda, I'm very conscious that very often a lot of meetings, a lot of discussions take place away from committee about issues that are obviously of relevance to the committee, but won't necessarily get reported to meetings simply because there's no requirement for particular decisions to be made. So I thought it'd be helpful just to update members on a couple of items and a couple of events that are taking place this week. The first is to make you aware that representatives of the South of Scotland Alliance met with the Deputy First Minister on the 12th of July. That's the annual briefing meeting that we have with the Finance Secretary to discuss progress in the South of Scotland Alliance. During the course of that meeting, we discussed a number of major items that are obviously relevant to this committee, relevant to the South of Scotland Alliance, around the role of superfast broadband in particular, what's likely to happen about the 5% not within the 95% target by 2017. We discussed issues around mobile phone connections or the lack of in Dumfries and Galloway, and the lack of coverage in some areas. And we obviously discussed the issue around the configuration of nuts, if you like, when it comes to European funding. Crucially, we also discussed the South of Scotland Alliance's regional economic strategy, and in particular the 4 projects that make up that strategy. And for this region, obviously the 2 projects are the M74 corridor and Stranraer waterfront. I think it was an incredibly constructive meeting. I think there was a recognition from the Finance Secretary that maybe up until now the Scottish Government's economic policy maybe hadn't really focused a lot on regional equity, and there were obviously peripheral parts of Scotland that often lost out as a result of that. But I think a real recognition that the time had come for the Scottish Government to look at the issue of Stranraer waterfront in particular and the potential for investments. It was agreed to have further discussions with the Finance Secretary to look at ways in which the Scottish Government could support that particular project. So I think it was a constructive meeting from that point of view. As a chair of the South of Scotland Alliance, I'm very conscious that ultimately that group is a lobbying group. So what we also agreed to do was to request a meeting with all the South of Scotland MSPs to brief them on the work of the Alliance, and in particular to brief them on the areas that we're lobbying on. So that meeting will take place on Wednesday at the Scottish Parliament, and after the UK general election, we'll also convene a meeting of MPs as well to brief them on the work of the South of Scotland Alliance, because we need to keep the pressure up when it comes to that level of investment. Another issue that's been raised at this committee a number of times in the past has been, I suppose, concerns regarding the extent to which Scottish enterprise have been involved, if you like, in some of the economic work within the region. And myself and Alistair and Ewan met senior executives of Scottish enterprise in February as well to discuss, I suppose, those concerns as part of ongoing dialogue with Scottish enterprise. And what we agreed was an action plan, a Scottish enterprise action plan of involvement that they're going to have within Dumfries and Galloway in terms of supporting businesses across the region. So I'll arrange for members to receive a copy of that action plan. I think it's progress. I think there's a commitment there from Scottish enterprise to increase their involvement within the region and increase their support to businesses, in particular when it comes, and going back to the issue around the South of Scotland Alliance, when it comes to involvement around those 2 key projects. So I think we're making progress along that line, and I'll arrange to send copies of the action plan to members. They may want to raise any particular questions on them. The final issue, just to flag up, is the fact that obviously as a committee we agreed, along with Wigtonshire Area Committee, to lobby regarding the new ScotRail franchise, and in particular 2 issues where the direct services from Stranraer and also the changes in the Nith Valley line are concerned that they weren't coming fast enough in terms of improvements to the rolling stock. A letter was sent, particularly as a result of a request from Wigton Area Committee. A letter was sent to the Transport Minister, Derek Mackay, requesting a meeting. The Area Committee were obviously keen that meeting took place in Stranraer. Unfortunately, the Minister indicated that because of diary commitments, he couldn't commit to having a meeting in Stranraer, but he did agree to meet with a contingent from the area committee and from this committee, and that meeting's taking place on Thursday evening in the Scottish Parliament. So after that meeting, we'll update members on any progress we make as a result of those discussions regarding the ScotRail franchise. So I thought it would be helpful to update members on some of those areas. Finlay?
Thanks, Chair. Just a very quick question. I think there's a danger of the superfast broadband project turning from a good news story into a bad news story because of the lack of information that's coming from either the Scottish Government or Openreach or whatever with regards to the rollout. With some towns having half a street being updated, another street not, with no information whether that's going to be in the next 6 months or the next 6 years. Can you tell me when the next briefing meeting would be for members to get an update on just where the rollout is?
I don't know the date of the meeting. I don't know if Ewan's able to advise. It's a valid point. I think the issue is, I think you're right, because it's a good news story, but you have concerns when communities say, well, when is it coming to my street? And I think one of the big challenges is that you get conflicting information. If you go into the BT website, type in your postcode, it will say it's basically already there and they're taking orders. You then go into Digital Scotland's website, type in your postcode, and it says it's not available. So there's conflicting information. I think that's the frustration communities have. They want to know when it's going to happen. There's a lot of work taking place. A lot of communities came on board recently in terms of the rollout. So I think it would be helpful to have another briefing session. Maybe Ewan can fill us in on that.
I'm very happy to do that, and I suggest we do it before the recess. And we would do that as we did before with a representative of the delivery team from government coming down and talking. Very happy to pick that up, actually.
Okay, Ian and then Jim.
Thanks. It's good that you're doing that, Chairman, in regards to that. So through Susie, you've spoke to John Swinney, you've touched on broadband, which is reason why you've touched on NUTS, which is going further against Scottish borders and into Ayrshire as well as different Dumfries and Galloway. You've touched on the regional economic strategy, and you've got things organised. And you've spoken about particular projects in Dumfries and Galloway, which is over in the west of the region, and quite rightly so. What are you doing for the east of the region in regards to that? You're speaking about that. And the reason I'm saying that is because with a consultation process last week over in Arndale and Eskdale, obviously with the demise of the Chapel Cross, one of the spokespersons who was there, who's involved in Scottish Government and COSLA and so on and so forth, different organisations, says that really in Dumfries and Galloway, and from Scottish Government's perspective, for what he can see in lobby activities, that's why I welcome this, the fact that it's an increase in lobby activities, we're invisible across this, from a Scottish Government perspective. So I just wonder, from the east of the region side, what are you lobbying in regards to that?
The two projects we discussed with John Swinney was Stranraer Waterfront. The other project we discussed was the M74 corridor and effectively Chapel Cross. What I'll do is I'll arrange to send you a note on where we are with the M74 work, because we obviously updated John Swinney on that work, and the South of Scotland Alliance get updates on a regular basis, so we can send you an update on that. And that's one of the projects we'll discuss with the South of Scotland MSPs tomorrow. We'll give them an update on where we are in terms of business plans, in terms of development of that project. But that was one of the two projects that we discussed with the Finance Secretary. Okay, Jim. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for updating us on that. Regarding the meeting with the Transport Minister, there's already been movement regarding the Stranraer line. It was announced yesterday that due to suggestions put forward by Ailey MacLeod, that there has been changes to the proposed services from Stranraer, that there will now be 2 services that will go to Glasgow via Kilmarnock, and there will be 4 services coming back from Glasgow via Kilmarnock. So there already has been some movement.
We heard that obviously at the Balliol briefing yesterday, and hopefully we'll get confirmation of that definitely happening from the Transport Minister on Thursday. But it's certainly progress, and I think it shows that lobbying does actually work, and hopefully we'll get some positive work around the Nith Valley line as well, which is obviously important to members, given the numbers of people that actually use that line to Carlisle every day. It's obviously probably the best used service within the region. Any other questions on that? Okay, members, can we turn to item number 3, which is the minute of the Housing Subcommittee meeting of the 20th of November. Members of the Housing Committee happy to agree that? Okay. Okay, can we turn to item number 4, the minute of the Economy, Environment and Infrastructure Committee meeting on the 13th of January. Jim?
Just really clarification at 2.3, my declared interest was as a board member of the CRP, not West Strands. I have no connection with West Strands at all.
Okay, thanks, Jim. We'll get that updated. Apart from that change, are members happy to agree the minute? Yeah. Okay, thanks very much. Okay, members, can we turn to item number 5, which is the Vehicles Fleet and Infrastructure Asset Class Capital Programme for 2015. A number of decisions to be made here in terms of how we take this programme forward. We've got Stephen here to answer any questions. Can I ask Stephen if he's got anything he wishes to add to the report? Okay, can I open it up to members' questions? Okay, Ian.
Thanks, Chairman. A couple of questions, but the first one is in regards to the spending profile across Dumfries and Galloway. Do we have any indicative figures in regards to how the spend is per area, as per the 4 areas? We've got obviously Arndale, Estill, Nistell, Stewart and Wigtonshire. How does that divide up?
Okay, Stephen.
Yep, if I could just answer that. For most of the programmes, there isn't a percentage split, or there isn't a target percentage split across the areas, and it's really based on the priorities. So the likes of the recently introduced car park programme, the 50,000 we've got in there at Capital, is really looking at a spend in one car park in an area, each year. So all the spend happens to be in this deal this year for the proposal that's before members just now. Flooding projects, again, the majority of that will sit with the Stranraer scheme and trying to move that forward this year going forward. Where we do have kind of target splits, it's in the road surfacing programmes and the surfacing and the surface dressing, and those are based on weighted road lengths. There's a kind of historic allocation. As the revenue budget is divided across the region on these weighted road lengths, these elements of the capital programme within the surfacing schemes as a starting point are split across the region.
Okay, do you want to come back in, Ian?
Please, that's good to hear that that's the format that you're using. I thought from the way the improvements to the roads was laid, that was the case, because I think maybe got an issue to take up, but that'll be away from the committee. The second point was brought, it was more of an overarching point in regards to the 26th of March. We've made a decision already that the Dumfries and Galloway Council, DG First and the road service and Plan Environment Service will come together as one. It'll come through the one committee in whichever kind of format that is. And it's to get an understanding how that'll work, because clearly we've got capital here. We see the capital side, DG First deal with the revenue. There'll be an integration there. It's to try and get an understanding as we go forward. Maybe potential governance issues, but I'd like to see the spend profile between the two, how they could possibly merge or intermix it, just to get an understanding of that, because this committee will have overarching responsibility after the 26th of March. I know there's a transitional time, but just it's a broad question on how that will possibly work as we go forward.
Well, I think the first thing to say is that the delegation to this committee as far as the capital budget's concerned hasn't changed, and that won't change until the future. So obviously we've got a job of work to do today in terms of agreeing the paper that's before us, because that's still the responsibility of this committee. Eventually we'll move to a position whereby there'll be a single business plan from the merged DG First PES department. That business plan won't come into play until April 2016. There'll be an interim business plan before then, so the final work won't take place till then. And obviously the committee on the scheme of delegation have still to look at what the final committee structure would be for effectively the merged department. So that work's still to be done. Obviously, as a member of the committee, you'll be aware of that. So we've still to decide what ultimately the committee will be. It's likely to be this committee, obviously, but there may still be some sort of forum around DG First. That hasn't been agreed yet, so that work's still to be done. So in the meantime, we've obviously still got this delegation, and we just continue as is until any further decisions are made.
That's my understanding of what's to happen, but I think should we not be looking forward and take consideration how we, as a committee, as a strategic committee, looking at this again. I think it's an important factor how we should be looking. 2016, you're right, April time 2016 becomes official, everything's in place. We've got a year's worth of transition where we can again get ahead of the game, and I think this committee should be looking at that seriously. So if there's any possible way that we could bring that back in the form of a report, unless it's gone through the other actual committees that are looking at this, like the review of scheme of delegations and the full council, I suppose, are the two main committees that look at this. But I still think this committee here has an important role to play in regards to that. We should have a report coming forward.
Well, we do have an important role because obviously we have to agree the capital budget, but of course we also agree the commission itself. So this committee agrees the commission that goes to DG first and what work we want carried out. And obviously we get regular reports on the capital budget every 3 months. So they'll take into account any changes that are likely to happen in the future. So, we will get updates on a regular basis.
Just the last point I'll say, it's like things that have been brought up to me from both constituents and members of the group is potentially the way certain repairs are being addressed and so on and so forth. We didn't get a chance to that because we commissioned that service.
Yeah.
That will become part of our remit to look at that. We can look at that through this committee through time, and that's the type of aspects I was talking about. I think it would be constructive to go forward.
No, I agree. I think that was the basis for the merger. I think that was the whole basis of the merger. But until that actually takes place, then obviously the delegations remain until full council makes a change to delegations. It's this committee's responsibility to commission the work. It's this committee's responsibility to agree the capital budget. And until that changes, until delegation changes, then we have to continue with that delegation. Okay, I've got Jane next, and then Graham.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just with respect to the paragraph 3.29, the Kakubri onshore power supply, and it's simply a factual question. Is this permitted development, or is it something that would have to go to planning? It's in a conservation area, but of course it's on the harbour area. Please.
If I could just come in on that, yes, Councillor Maitland. You'll be aware that there was a proposed site was put to the Common Good, the Kakubri Common Good Committee, and that was rejected. So our colleagues in Property and Architectural Services are looking for an alternative site. We believe that site is still on Common Good, and the idea is that a report will come, I think it's the 20th of March, is the next opportunity to bring that report. So I think they're working towards bringing that report. At the same time, because of the size of the transformer that would require, the Scottish Power kit that we require, we're negotiating, we're talking with the Planning Authority, and we've submitted initial details to correspond with them on the need for a planning application. But as you're aware, we're kind of working against the deadline of funding to try and achieve all this and get a satisfactory location.
Okay, Graham.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. A couple of points. The A747 Benreath landslip. I know there are temporary traffic lights there at the moment, but I've been approached by the local community asking when the work could be done, how long it's going to take, and will the road be closed completely during that period. And it doesn't seem that long. Maybe that's just an age thing. It doesn't seem that long since it was done the last time, and it is a fairly major problem. I'm well aware of that. There's a house at the bottom of the slope which might disappear someday if we don't do something fairly soon. That was the first point. The second point was the Garliston breakwater. It's not in under the coastal infrastructure, but so I think it's mentioned somewhere in here. But there's serious concerns about the time it's taking to get something done about the Garliston breakwater and the pathway along the shore. And I know there has been communication with the Community Council and one of our officers on that with that regard. So I just wondered if I could get an update on those two items, please.
Yeah, the A747, I don't have the details specifically that you're asking for in terms of timescale, but we'll get that, and we'll advise you of that in terms of when and how long and what the diversions will be. It's obviously a route that at various locations that has problems in terms of stability, and I know in the past, as you've alluded to, there's been various works carried out, including some drainage works on the upslope to try and reduce movement of the carriageway. So I'll get the details specifically on when we plan to programme that. For your information. The Garliston breakwater is listed at a coastal infrastructure, page 32. Sorry, page 32 at the bottom. Garliston's identified as an issue, and we've asked colleagues in engineering design when they're doing the harbour inspections and the markers that they will pick up the breakwater at Garliston as well. Our initial kind of question to them is, are there issues with the breakwater? And you can obviously see there's a gap has formed in it towards the end of the breakwater. Does it have any, what are the impacts, their view of the impacts on the harbour itself? So we await their report on that, but we've identified it as being as part of the coastal infrastructure programme for the year going ahead, if we determine that works are necessary in the protection of the harbour. On the third point, the pathway, I'm aware in the past that there has been coast protection work carried out at that location. It's not a location that we're particularly protecting a council asset, and I think that's possibly in the past been more associated with the core path network and maintaining that at that location. But it's certainly not something I'm aware that there's a problem coming up that has been flagged up to us. But I would question whether it's appropriate to consider it in this part of the budget, coastal infrastructure councils, coastal infrastructure assets.
I'll just come back briefly on that, just to say that it was done up with council money, I understand, at one stage, and they made a very, very good job of it. And unfortunately, with the high tides, a lot of it's got washed away, and it's a causing concern. It's a very popular path. It's a path from Garliston round to Rigby, and a very popular walk, especially in the summertime, and the locals are quite concerned about it.
Simon, do you want to go on to that?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as outlined, the path was upgraded as part of the storm damage works in last year in order to bring it back up to a like-for-like standard. Unfortunately, due to sort of some of the issues we've got with coastal erosion, that path has suffered. It is still usable, but is not up to the same condition. As part of the longer-term options to move forward, we are looking and considering alternatives that would not be subject to erosion.
Okay, I've got Ronnie Ogilvie next, then Roberta, and then Jim.
Thanks, Chair. It's just an observation, really. I'm really pleased that we've been able to put in 1.5 million into the infrastructure. And what struck me was if the alternative budget had been passed, there'd be 500,000 less. So I just wondered what roads might be struck off the list there.
Jim?
We're here to discuss the contents of what was actually passed. What hasn't been passed is not really the subject for discussion, I would say. Proposals haven't been accepted by the council. We made the decision as full council about the budget that would be passed. I don't think any proposals need to be discussed in here that weren't accepted.
I think maybe Councillor McClung's answered your question for you, Ronnie. Okay, Roberta.
Thank you. I have a general question. If a local member has a particular project that they wish to be elevated onto the capital programme, can you tell me exactly what the process is for that?
Stephen, do you want to comment?
Yep. I'm not sure that there is a precise process. I think in terms of how projects get onto the capital programme, I suppose this report's asking members to do two things for the year ahead. And we like to get the infrastructure report in early so that we can get on and do the planning and the advanced works. But effectively what we're asking members to do is agree there is a £9.5 million budget. The first thing we're asking members to consider is the spend across the sub-programmes, and then having agreed that, we're then asking members to consider the actual projects within those sub-programmes. How do those projects get identified? There's previously identified works that have been reported to members before, that there's been given an ongoing commitment to run through the preliminary design and to take them forward to a point where they become schemes that we can construct. There's officer reviews in terms of priorities across the region or within specific operational areas as to what the priorities are. There's input from members of the public through petitions or queries or issues that are raised by elected members. But I suppose all of these things are taken into account, and officers put together a recommended programme for members to take forward. If there are particular projects that members want to bring forward, they can certainly, I would imagine, talk to any of us within the infrastructure team or colleagues in DG First, and we can look at those proposals and see what programmes they fit against. And then we need to look at the prioritisation and advise members accordingly. But it's obviously this committee to decide completely what projects are within the programme.
Thank you.
A former queue outside Stephen's office, I think, is the answer. Okay, we've got Jim next.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's just really clarification on a couple of, well, four of the things. The 313, flood risk management. The flood protection scheme in Stranraer will also be progressed. Have we any idea of the timescale of when that will start or when it's likely to be completed? The road safety programme regarding the reducing the budget, I take it that's based on road traffic crash figures, etc., etc. We're basing it on actual evidence. The coastal infrastructure, just to be absolutely, shows I'm absolutely clear, I take it that that is the final design for the final solution to the problem, and that the work that we agreed at this committee in September last year, i.e. the rock armour, etc., to stop any further erosion, has already been done. This is the design for the final solution, to coin a phrase. And 321 and 322, take it the core paths that are going to be realigned or deleted will be brought back in the report that is spoken about at 321 and not beforehand.
Can I just come in the flood protection scheme for Stranraer? I think we see that'll still be quite a long process in terms of going forward. No definite dates. There is negotiation through the district valuer with the main landowner concerned, and I've said that a couple of times at this committee before. It's not a particularly fast process. Going down the kind of statutory route would not be a particularly fast process as well. We've managed to deliver quite a lot of the elements and the phases of the whole Stranraer scheme in the past by negotiation, but we're now down to these kind of final elements. We think there might be some movement with the landowner, but I wouldn't say beyond we have any sort of certainty in terms of timescale. So it's the last two elements, and I think at some point we will need to make a decision that we're not progressing by negotiation. Come back to this committee to give them the opportunity to say, look, here are the benefits of the final elements that we could deliver, and here's the kind of effort that would be required. Is it still worth pursuing with that kind of last part of the scheme? On the road safety programme, the reducing budget, again, it's a bit of a balance between budgets. Probably some of the transportation road safety budgets are quite small. We've moved some money and funding about. We've been trying to put some more money into the coastal infrastructure overall, and a bit more money has gone into the surface dressing programme, just to address some of the needs there. In terms of the road safety programme, yes, it's based on analysis that the Service Manager Network Strategy does on the last 3 years' accident data, and effectively is looking for accident clusters and then looking at possible interventions that you could fund through the programme. The coastal infrastructure, the Kilstay Bay issue, I know you've met with some of my staff on that. There's been meetings on site with Councillor Foster as well. What we're programming to do there, we saw it, I think stepping back at the start, we saw it as a £750,000 problem. That was the kind of rough estimate at the time, and we'd used that to draw down some Scottish Government funding at the time. We've spent about just under £250,000 in this financial year on rock armour being put in place. This year, we're looking at about a similar figure going forward, and we're focusing our attention on site investigation works and design for works at the knuckle. There's a kind of change in direction, the weak point in the wall, effectively, where there's a change in direction. And we're looking at what the solution is this year for that element. We still anticipate there will be funding in future years required, but I think we need to come back with a bit more detail to members on just how far that design will go for repairs at the knuckle, how the rock armour is bearing up at the other locations, and what the final element of the works might be. So I'm not saying that this year it looks like the final completion of that project. I think with any piece of infrastructure of that kind of age, it's always going to be something we're going to be looking at in years ahead anyway for maintenance. But the concentration of the funding this year is on the next phase at the knuckle.
Jim?
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting it to be finally finished this year. It was just that what we're speaking about in 318 is the design of the final solution. Maybe not at the actual completion of the solution, but it is the design of the final solution.
I think as well as looking at the knuckle and designing what we finally want to put in place there, we'll take a view on the rock armour at the other locations being effectively the permanent solution, and see how it's bearing up under the winter conditions.
Okay, Ronnie? Sorry.
Well, thank you, Chair. Just in regards to the questions around core path planning, Yes, until we actually come back to the committee with an updated report on those paths to be deleted. Once we've followed the consultation process, no action will be taken. Be a report later.
Okay, Ronnie, do you want to come in?
No, I think, well, just something on this in the page 28 and 29. This is the infrastructure asset class. I noticed there is a number of areas in my ward: Ashton Drive, Deans Avenue, Trigons Road, Rankin Avenue, Dinmont Avenue, and Old Glasgow Road, Newbridge. I just wondered the cost of these repairs, whether it was about 500,000 or.
We can, I mean, we can give you details of the estimates of those locations or the extents of the schemes. What we tend to not do is put down the actual figures against each scheme in the reporting format until, you know, the kind of detailed design is completed and we know the exact cost. But if there are particular schemes you want to know the extents of, colleagues in DG First are working on, they've prepared the kind of the web-based system where it actually shows the extents of the schemes. And once the schemes are approved, they'll update that. And that's available to members to look at. We can sort out links or give you access to that.
That's fine. Thanks very much.
We've got Patsy next and then George.
Thank you. I'm looking at page 33, which is the 20-mile-an-hour limit at schools. And there's two in the Stewartry, both of which are in D Ward. And I wondered the potential works to be reviewed. I just wondered what that exactly means for both Gatehouse and Twynham, and whether it's to do with the fact that, you know, you are reducing the amount of money available for speed limit and the traffic calming program. And I just wonder if they're being reviewed as to whether they need to be done, or timing, and what consultation you're having with the schools and the community council.
What I would imagine we're flagging up there is really, with a lot of these schemes, there's a lot of consultation with the schools, with the parent councils, community. And what we're flagging up there is that consultation process needs to inform the extent of the scheme. They're on the list for taking forward next year. But to a certain extent, delivery of these particular schemes is very much about agreement with the community, if they're in agreement to the extent of the scheme and the locations. So I would imagine, particularly for those two, then, if we're looking at the consultation process, will inform the actual limits of the scheme.
I understand that as being ongoing, but if it's potential works to be reviewed, does that mean they're going to change, or it's going to be a different project, or why are they being reviewed?
What will be implemented? I mean, if there's any changes to the designs that the Service Manager Network Strategy is bringing forward, they will be consulted with the communities and ensure that happens.
That's not really the answer. I mean, because either there's a project in place and there's a time for it to be done for next year, if you like, because you've done your consultation and that's what's going forward, or what I'm reading here is that there's a different project going forward, therefore, and it might not happen at all. And I don't have a problem with that, but if it doesn't happen at all, particularly in Twynham, because they don't want it. But Gatehouse probably do need it, and I think we just need to know why it's being reviewed, and when.
Well, I mean, I think partly answering what you said about Twynham, if they don't want the scheme, it's very difficult to deliver a scheme that there is no public acceptance or support of. So that will be, for that element will be why it's being reviewed. It also makes the decision on timescales quite difficult, but effectively, where communities are resistant to these changes that have already been agreed by committee, I think it then becomes an issue, particularly for the area committee, to review and make a final decision on what scheme will be implemented.
So from that, could I take it that we'll come to area committee once, if you've decided on what projects you're going to do, on what it's going to be like for these reviewed projects at Gatehouse and Twynham, that will come to area committee for discussion? Or how will elected members for that ward know what's happening?
If there's a problem with the implementation of the scheme, or there's a dispute with the community about the detail of the implementation of the scheme, then yes, it would be something that would come to area committee. If it was clear cut and there was acceptance by all in consultation with members, in consultations with the community, then it would be a given that the approval was in place for the scheme. So it's where there would be a conflict of view that needs to be resolved and a member decision taken, I would advise that would go back to you.
Okay, George, and then Yen, and then back to Ian.
Thanks, Chair. It's actually on page 29 and 30. If we look down at the bottom of 29 and the top of 30, we see a whole scattering of wee bridges and minor roads. These are presumably fairly old bridges. I was just wondering what you actually mean by the description where it says design only. What's planned for some of these wee bridges?
What we've got in the Bridges programme is a variety of works that are taking place, and where that happens, we can put in the description that the deck will be replaced or the culvert will be replaced. Where we're wanting to include funding within the programme to move forward projects for future years, so it's likely that these projects would then feature in future years, and we would look at the design next year. We need to work out the actual optimum solution and the scope of the works. So what we're asking for approval here is for works, but for these ones that you've identified that say design only, we're really asking for approval just to fund that design process that will lead to works. And through that design process, we will work out what the optimum works are, the option, whether it's deck replacement, whether it's parapet replacement. It also gives us the time to do the kind of statutory consultations, particularly with SEPA if we've got water courses involved, so that we have approval for future years to actually implement the refurbishment works that are required.
So what we're actually saying here is we could see some of these small bridges next year coming back as a deck replacement or something different.
Having carried out the design, we've identified there's a problem, and we'll be coming back in future years with a solution to that. But it's next year we're looking for the funding for the design element of the work.
Okay, Yen.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for welcoming me to the committee. And this is my first time speaking, so bear with me. I might not have the full knowledge what's happening previously. I have two burning issues. First one is I've been contacted by the residents in Ruthwell Village area that 9 properties in the Ruthwell Village have been flooded by block ditches. I wonder if council could assist in this. I'm not a ward councillor, however, I've been approached by the residents and I wish this committee could address. My second matter is to do with the footpath as well. I have raised few EMES inquiries regarding my own ward footpath inquiries. And if this is going to be making priorities, our committee's priorities, could I bring this to the officer's attention and bring it back to the EMES inquiry?
But if there are particular locations where flooding problems are occurring, certainly if you pass on either details to myself or to James McLeod or the Brian Templeton and the flood team, they can look at what advice that they can give. It might not be the situation that the council has an input apart from advice, depending if you're saying ditches, it might be an agricultural problem, or it might be that it is water courses that the council have a responsibility for. But if we have the details passed on to the flood risk management team, they will certainly have a look at any flood locations and flood problems. In terms of the footpaths, can I just ask for clarification? Is that a footway beside a carriageway, or are we talking about the core paths?
Sorry, through you, Chair. It's not been finalized. It's been identified by the local communities. So it will be a new proposal.
Again, if the communities are coming forward, and they do that in a number of ways, they might write to us, or they might submit petitions. There is a process where we can look at that. If it's a request for a new footway, it's certainly something that can be added to the list. But as you'll see, with a lot of the funding programs here, there's quite a lot of potential footway works, and there's potential for us to bid into community links funding through Sustrans. But there are a lot of projects that are either kind of ready to go on the ground or kind of in development, and it's certainly something that we can add to that list. It might not feature particularly high as a priority due to the number of people who want to use the footway, or it might feature quite highly if we think it might be something that we could in later years use as a project to draw down external funding through Sustrans. So again, if details are passed on, if it's a request for a new footway, we can add that to the list.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, and finally, Ian. Separate meeting over there, Ian. Just when
Sorry about that, Chairman. I'll just be very quick. It's page 30. I'll not take up too much of your time because I know this is going on. Andy, unless it's the Cowden's Railway Bridge. It's a railway bridge. It's usually the railway that's responsible for that. Just clarity on that. And the other thing was 3.14, I think. It was 3.14, the intelligent, which is on page 18, the intelligent transport system. Is that in reference to, I brought it up in the past, it's been a long time since there's been any real survey work or improvement work between St Michael's Bridge and the hospital. Is that in relation to that? I was trying to pinpoint what that meant. Get into the appendix 2, but just where's that relative to that particular paragraph? Because that's been needing looked at for a long time. It hasn't been looked at for 11 or 12 years now. So that's just the 2 points. And if I can't pick them up here, I'll pick them out with the committee chairman.
Yes, under the structures on the road rail incursion programmes, the 15 locations that are identified there, what happened in the past during the 2000s with a number of accidents on the kind of road rail interface with vehicles encroaching onto the railway line. There was a piece of work done by Network Rail and various roads authorities where there was kind of joint funding, particularly where roads crossed over rail lines and there was a potential for interaction and vehicle off-run, and works were put in place. And there was a number of works done through the region in the 2000s on that. What we've got is the kind of end of that programme where it was never really fully taken forward. There were slightly lower risk sites where roads were parallel to rail lines, and a prioritisation process was agreed just within the last couple of years now with Network Rail on quite low cost measures on the roadside. So it might be just putting in extra length of vehicle crash barrier where we're running parallel to the rail lines. And my understanding is that is mostly funded by the roads authorities through the agreement with kind of national government in the past. And we would be picking up those locations now and taking them forward as planned for the next program, the next financial year.
Okay, Ian, yeah.
I think maybe Steve just got to come back in particular paragraph 3.14. Is that in reference to St Michael's Bridge up to the hospital? Because that hasn't been looked at for 11 or 12 years now in regards to getting that revised and getting it so it links up and coordinates with each other. Is that in reference to that, or where is that in reference to?
In terms of the paragraph 3.14, it's kind of generally talking about the intelligent transport system and the prioritisation that the network management, the service manager network strategy is proposing in terms of where there are renewals across anywhere where we have controlled crossings. He's suggesting there's a priority there in terms of there's a need, and that we also look at the accessibility issues and the DDA accessibility issues as well, and the provision for cyclists and pedestrians. We have a kind of process where in a period of about 10 to 15 years we renew each signal installation, and the kind of funding level is there for us to do that on a kind of 10-year cycle. Some locations were able to push that out a bit to 15 years. Particular locations, we'll look at where it comes on that cycle and when kind of intervention is required and renewal of signals. Are you asking about the signals at the 3 road ends? Was that, because I think that is one that's coming up as a replay.
It was brought to my attention through one of my own constituents from Annan about the havoc it's caused in mornings and afternoons at the peak times in regards to St Michael's Bridge through up to the hospital. When I looked into that, the facts came back. It had been 11 or 12 years since that had actually been looked at in a proper manner. I brought it up a couple of meetings ago. I actually brought it up at committee and says, listen, well, it kind of goes back to what Roberta was saying earlier. How do we get things onto the programme? At that point, we've got reassurances that would be looked at. So that's why I've looked at it there. I thought maybe this is it, because I didn't see it explicitly within a programme of works. Was it the scoot system or something like that, I think it's maybe called. But there's no intelligence. They don't talk to each other. It's random, is what we're being told out with the committee, that these just work independently on their own, and there's no coordination between St Michael's Bridge, traffic lights right up to the hospital, which I think would help alleviate the pressure at the peak times, if they actually did.
The scoot system itself, the signals within the town centre are running on a self-optimization system, so they're always kind of adjusting themselves in relation to traffic flows. And that's something that we look at. We tend to try and pick up. The program is that we go out and we'll assess one signal, say, every month, just to make sure that that optimization is working. Some of the signals beyond the Scoot system are too far away to actually work on that kind of optimization program, and so will run separately from the Scoot system. But again, those individual signals will be looked at in terms of the controllers that are running them and the patterns for presenting greens and reds so that they are optimized as well. But there are some of the systems that aren't connected to Scoot, and that's partly because they're too far away for the system to actually work on predicting what the queues and the journey times are going to be.
Okay, and finally, Finlay.
Thank you. Before I actually bring my point up, I was, my memory maybe fails me, but I thought there was some capital funding allocated to realigning the layout of the road at Dockhead this year, last year or the previous year, where they looked at maximising the flow of traffic turning right at St Michael's. And that was part of the capital budget either last year or the year before. And that never seemed to be spent because I expected some changes in the road layout after that. And it was subsequent to that change in the road layout that the intelligent traffic lights were supposed to be looked at again. So I think it somehow dropped off the list. There was supposed to be some lane realignment and the loss of some car parking spaces. And I'm sure that we looked at that, this committee, either a year ago or even longer ago than that. My question, however, was on road lighting. On page 30, we see that there's details of what's happening there. These are replacements of columns. Are there extra expenditure on the rollout of the LED lights that are just not shown in the paper here? Because it would appear that, certainly in the Stewardship, I'd hoped there'd be an acceleration of the rollout of the LEDs so we could get the whole of the Stewardship completed, because it's been a fantastic success in the Glen Kens and some other towns, and Kirkcudbright now sticks out, and Castleknock stick out like a sore thumb with their amber lights, where everywhere else in the region or in that area are now the LED lights. Is this the total expenditure on road lighting, or is the spend to save on LED lights shown somewhere else?
So just, if I could come back on the first point, the project on the St Michael's Street right turn, I can check on that, but I think that's probably been kind of caught up in the proposals for the White Sands project, as we were looking at reallocating the road space down there. So that we wouldn't want to be premature and do something that we would then have to move again. So that kind of has become part of that bigger project. And again, if there's a benefit in doing it earlier, it might be something that we can look at in a kind of quicker timescale. The road lighting, page 30, is the kind of usual capital program, the replacement, the road lighting that has gone on for many years now. And it doesn't, as you've suggested, doesn't show the LED replacement lighting program. We'll bring, next time we report back to committee, we'll bring the LED program for next year as well. We had hoped to have that too. It's not something we normally report to this committee because the funding comes through policy and resources, but it's something we've added in at members' request, and we'll put in that program the next time we report back on what's proposed. So that program has been worked on just now.
And finally, I said that 3 times. Sorry, not finally, I've got another 2 speakers. Second, finally, John, and then Jim.
Thanks, Chair. It's just that I've got a bit of concerns there. We're talking about the 3 road ends, the refurbishment of lights at the 3 road ends. As I say, I've got concerns here about, as I say, last Wednesday, they actually had the Kingham Road closed to, I think it was for cut down a couple of trees in the town centre. Well, St Michael Street right through Brooms Road, etc., was completely gridlocked. So I just hope that we're going to take adequate measures here to make sure the traffic flows, because last Wednesday was just utter chaos. It's just much following on to that. It's in page 17, the A76 Brooms Road. As I say, that's one of the main routes in there. Like we're going to be resurfacing it. I'd just like assurances that we're going to have a plan much in place like we had in Buccleuch Street, that a lot of the works will be done with quieter periods over the weekends and at nights, etc. As I say, because as I say, that's one of the main routes, and you know what happens. We don't only need something to happen in the dual carriageway on the bypass, and it would be utter chaos on that road. And just a small thing there, like as I say, we've got work on, we've got resurfacing Round Bank at Ellen Bank Junction with Callside Road. Should that not read Round Bank Avenue, Round Bank Road?
Yep, I mean, yes, they're fair comments in terms of delays and potential for delays, and even the works that are going on around these offices are obviously past DG1, they're obviously causing some delays. But any time we do work in the town on some of these high flow roads, that there are going to be impacts. But we'll make sure that I'm sure DG First are focused on that, but we'll make sure that our delivery partner are focused on the measures in place to try and minimise those delays. And as you say, if part of the bypass closed, then we'd have to go back to strategic diversion routes. We need to make sure that we had measures in place that we could quickly re-access some of these routes that we're working on a temporary basis.
Okay, Jim?
Yeah, thanks for letting me back in, Chair. It's just in regard as a follow-up to Councillor Carson. I would ask that if when the report comes back regarding the low-level lighting that's been put in, that we actually get the information about what areas have what percentage done, because if my memory serves me right, the Stuartry area has actually quite a high percentage when you can consider it against the like of Wigtonshire, and I think Annandale and Eskdale, and that was done because of the Dark Skies Park. Now, I can understand Councillor Carson wanting all of Stuartry done, but there are 3 other areas.
I'll give you a compromise. We'll do Eskdale first. Stephen, do you want to comment on that?
I mean, we have, when we've been round area committees on the Strategic Commission's performance, we've been able to tell each of the areas what percentage of the programme we're through in the first 2 years. And then, as Councillor McClung says, we've kind of targeted on the more remote areas and the dark skies areas. And I think there was quite a high percentage done in the Stuartry area, but we can certainly give those percentage figures back to this committee as well as the proposal for the future years' programmes. The more urban areas have tended to will tend to come later in the programme because they're more accessible for maintenance.
I think it's interesting that how far we've come. When we started debating this issue to begin with, there was concerns, would people actually like this lighting? Now we're actually saying, can we have it in our area? So it just shows you how successful the whole project is. Okay, members, can we turn to the recommendations on page 15? Are members happy to note 2.1? Okay, and approve 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, accept the grant at 2.5. Okay, note 2.6. Okay, accept 2.7 and 2.8. Okay, thank you very much indeed. And thanks, Simon and Stephen, for fielding the questions. Okay, folks, it's Groundhog Day again. We're going to have another bash at the Windafrm Community Benefit Policy. See if we can get it right this time. Okay, we've got you and Chris and McNabb to answer any questions on the paper. Going to ask if they've got anything they wish to add to the paper before us. No. Okay, we'll open it up to members for questions. Ian.
I would just move. We've been through this, like you say, it's Groundhog Day as many times, and the group's content with the report as is. We've not got anybody particularly who would like to be a member, so leave that to the rest of the committee. I would move we do actually agree, subject to the membership.
Agreed. Oh, almost. Okay, Patsy and then Jim.
Thank you. I mean, I'm very pleased to see this here, and I'm not being difficult in any way, but I'm looking at the management committee and the makeup of it. And there's quite an emphasis on the independence of the management committee, with an independent chairman and a majority of the committee to be independent members, and also to have a good geographical spread. But by my reckoning, which that's all very laudable, and I absolutely agree with it, but by my reckoning, the way it's made up is that there's 5 public sector groups to be in that, which leaves 4 independents, and even by my reckoning, that's not majority. And I don't think it leaves it very thin to have a geographic spread, so I don't quite understand your makeup of your management committee.
I think, to be fair, that list is just examples of where the 4 might be drawn from. I think I'd be right in saying is that. So they won't all have a representative. It'll just be the public sector representatives will be drawn from
But the
that group of people.
emphasis here is that it must be independent. It must be primarily a majority of independent people on this management committee. And the way it's set out here is that the public sector representatives will be drawn from. So are you only saying that there'll only be one or two of those public sector people, or all of them? It doesn't make it clear.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be clear that if it's going to work, it's got to have an independent majority. It has to do that. And I just like it, and I don't think it's very clear in this report that that's actually how it's going to be made up.
Thank you, Chair. As the Chair says, those are examples from where the representatives will be drawn. How we would aim to do this is the same way as the leader model that's been accepted works, is that we would draw up briefs of the representative and their experience, and it would be put out to open recruitment with the emphasis, as you quite rightly say, Councillor Gilroy, on private sector and not on public sector. So those are examples, but I take the point that it should be made clearer.
Okay, I've got Jim and then Finlay.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Maybe surprisingly enough, I don't really have that much problem with what's being proposed here. I have just one or two questions. When we got the briefing, I did ask the question, but didn't really get an answer. What would happen if a developer wished to put in some of the £5,000 a megawatt into this regional fund and only give the communities the rest of the 5,000 that was left? If we were to accept that offer for a developer, I think you would just find a continuation of the friction that we have at the minute, or we had with our previous policy. I would think that in any negotiations that the council would be involved in, that was offered, I would think our position should be no, the £5,000 goes to the community. If they then want to go and put some money into the regional, that's fine. Or if you wish to put some money into a regional, that's extra to the 5,000, because the 5,000 is for the community. Regard the objectives, I was under the impression that the previous subcommittee that we had decided that all of the objectives there would be rural and would be embedded in them, not as possibly the afterthought at 2.4, where it says as well as the above objectives, it proposed that the fund has a rural. I was under the impression that the members of the subcommittee had agreed that the objectives were to be primarily rural. As regarding the personal liability, at 3.5, the council is the accountable body, underwrite any personal liability of the members of the management committee. Does that include the councillor? And as regarding the council representation in the board, I fully agree regarding area-wide representative. One councillor representing the whole of the area, given that we all know, even in this committee, without going to a 47 full council committee, that there is a great divergence of views about what this money should be used for. So maybe we should look at more than one councillor.
But I think in terms of members on the group, I think following what we've always adopted through the process of leader, to have one elected member on the management committee for leader. So that was the rationale for having one elected member here. And that also would assist in ensuring that we keep the maximum number of public sector representatives to 4, or below the 50%. In terms of the accountability, that's absolutely correct. The council's role there would be as an accountable body, and that does, without doubt, cover elected members' role on the group. And in terms of I think the wider issue about rural focus, perhaps not explicit enough for you in the report, but the emphasis absolutely was around rurality and dealing with rural issues. Happy to write that in a bit stronger, but clearly there might be a region-wide activity that comes out of this that may fund activity that cover areas that are in Dumfries, for example, that might not be strictly rural by definition. So hence this is written in that way. I'm not sure I'm answering exactly what you want me to say, but certainly the rurality was a key issue and a key focus for the funding.
I think to be fair, you've added in paragraph 2.4, which I think addresses that. Jim, do you want to?
The terms of 2.4, even I could drive a bus through that one. It says the objectives and the aim of the fund is also to have a rural slant on it. I thought we had agreed that it was a rural slant, and then it would be considered for other areas.
Ronnie?
Just on that, I mean, my understanding of this 2.4 is the very last sentence to this end. Each project will be required to meet at least one above objectives and have a clear focus on rural communities in the region. And I do understand that, you know, what you're saying, and you know, my example would be as if you had a rural community, you know, and they wanted to feed into that fund, but you know, they would be willing to do that. That's fine, and it might be for example, apprenticeships in the area for some kind of course, or take them through that. That course would then probably be, or could be, done in the college in Dumfries. The college isn't in the rural community, so that course would then be paid for by that money, you know, to provide apprenticeships for a rural community. So the objective is the rural community, but the course would be paid for in Dumfries. So that's the way I take it. We're in this place just now, and you know, it's, to my mind, this is a very good report, and it covers rural. It gives confidence to the communities that we, as a council, are not in charge. It is, and that was part of the problem before of this money, that we are working for the communities to get the best benefit for them and what they want. And that's my take on this. And as for the elected member, you know, on that then is exactly the same point. I think that it's to be seen by the communities that it's not the council that is driving this, it is the rural communities and the people that work for them.
Finlay?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, obviously we welcome the report, and I think we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully. I think it's maybe unfortunate, as Jim has already said, that 2.4 appears at 2.4 and not at 2.1, that all through this process that we've looked for an emphasis on the impact that this fund could have in rural areas. I wonder whether the wording might have been that the projects would clearly demonstrate the impact in the rural host communities. I take on board what the leaders are suggesting, that it may be that a project could actually take place in Dumfries or Castle Douglas or Gretna, but would clearly have an impact on those people living in a rural host community. I think that's not lost on anybody. But I certainly think we need to emphasise that it clearly demonstrates an impact on the host communities. One thing that I think might help communities as they go through the process is actually what part McNab plays in this whole negotiation. Jim touched on the fact that we might come across the time where some wind farm developers would rather put the 5,000 into the community pot, at which point we're back to the old game of where the community councils think the council are trying to take this money and put it into the pot for themselves. I think it would be helpful if there was a clearly defined remit for McNab when he goes out to these communities to show that he's actually trying to maximise the amount of money that comes into Dumfries and Galloway, and not maximise the amount of money that comes into the Dumfries and Galloway region-wide pot. Because what we don't want to get into the situation is where we've got wind farm companies playing community against council again, which we've seen in the past, and the McNab's role is to maximise the amount of money that comes in and not necessarily maximise the amount of money that comes into the community pot. My final comment is we need to have some clarity on what the application process is and ensure that that it's clearly defined about host communities bidding into the fund, and that they won't get any less money than somebody who may not be a host community, because previous application forms actually suggested that host communities would get less money than people who weren't already getting wind farm money, and I think that's got to be clear as well.
In terms of we deal with the community benefits officer role first, that's really about what the policy that we agreed to committee says and does. And certainly the feedback since that change has been very positive from communities in terms of our engagement and having that ability to go out and engage in a completely different way. So I think, in terms of what that role is, happy to just provide you something as members with a few paragraphs just outlining that. I would certainly say that is what we're doing and delivering is definitely in line with the policy, which is the shift around, as you explained, as you said there, Councillor Carson, maximising the investment into the region as opposed to the split. And the other issue you raised in terms of values of the fund and the process, I think it's very difficult to bring back a whole lot of detail on that until we understand how much money is in the pot. And I think what we were suggesting here is that be left to the remit of the management group to determine that once we see any values, if indeed anything does come into the pot in due course. And that would be in terms of, if it's a small amount of money, is that a small grants programme and how that impacts on the host community, or indeed, if it's a large amount of money, what that looks like in terms of wider strategic applications to it, and setting things like deadlines and funding levels. That's detail that would be best left to be determined by the management group once we understand what sort of money is coming in to it. Sorry, I can't remember the third issue you raised. Sorry? Oh, there wasn't any two, sorry.
Okay, Jane.
Thanks very much. I think it's quite clear that we aren't actually really anticipating an enormous amount of money coming into this. It's a parking slot. I think the issue of people being worried that developers will go and put cash in there. This is the cold eye of commerce. Developers are likely to do exactly what they think communities want. I don't see them doing anything that is going to go against what they fondly imagine that the communities will want and be best pleased with. Councillor McClung's ward is going to be, I think, awash with money, bearing in mind where the wind farms are. I think many communities might find themselves actually really quite surprised at the burden that they are going to be given to deal with. So I'm actually very happy with this as a proposal. I think it's a good solution to the problems we've had up till now. The only thing I'd ask you, Chairman, is that the thing we don't have here is a reporting mechanism to us, and arguably a process of review, which I think should be built in at some stage somehow. But otherwise, no, I think this is a pretty good solution to something which is very difficult to sort out.
I agree entirely at that point. Okay, Jim?
Yes, thanks for letting me back in, Chair. Having listened to what everybody has said, including the answers, I'd just like to point out that it's not just my ward, the two other councillors for that ward happen to be sitting in this committee as well, so it's not just my ward that's awash. There's 3 members here, and they are certainly the ones that are going to be, Councillor Maitland says, awash with money, are dealing with it and have set up processes in which they can deal with all the money that they're going to get. Having listened to everything, I would be perfectly prepared to accept the appendix as it is, with the deletion of the as well as the above objectives at the start of 2.4. I'd be perfectly happy to accept that with the deletion of those words.
Members happy with that?
So what objectives are we? Yeah, I mean, these are just examples of objectives that can move. There can be 1, it could be 2, it could be. So we've got to have some kind of objectives. You know, so if we take out the objectives altogether, what would we be left with?
Chair, if I could answer that one, in that case, I see what the leader's saying. In that case, I would be prepared to accept it if you remove the as well as. And that would then mean it would read the above objectives are proposed, sorry, and change the it is to are proposed that the fund has a rural focus. At the minute, the way that's worded, even I could drive a horse and cart through it and get stuff filtered into towns rather than rural, because it's saying as well as the above objectives, it's supposed to have a rural focus, instead of what was agreed at the subcommittee was that everything was to have a rural focus to begin with and then look at more built up areas.
Clarify the alternative wording then, Jim, just so we're clear.
Yeah, thanks. Remove the as well as is. The above objectives are the above protect regarding the above objectives, they will have a rural focus, acknowledging the rural location of the wind farms themselves. To this end, each project will be required to meet, etc., etc.
Above objectives will have a rural focus, is that what you're saying?
Sorry?
The above objectives will have a rural focus, is that?
Yes.
Yeah. Finlay?
Chair, I think all we need to do, it actually mentions to this end each project would require to have at least one of the above objectives. So I think we could get away with taking out the whole bit as well as the above objectives, and then just start the 2.4 saying it is proposed that the fund has a rural focus. I think we can take away the whole of that because it's actually covered later on in the paragraph where it says it must contain at least one of the above objectives.
Members happy with that, yeah.
Which if I think was actually what I proposed in the first place.
In the interest of moving it on, I will read out the proposed wording simply to remove the first line, and it says it's proposed that the fund has a rural focus, because as Finlay says, it does go on later on to say about the objectives. So members happy with that? Okay. Okay, can we turn to the rest of the recommendations? Sorry, happy to note 2.1. Agree 2.2, obviously with the amended wording. 2.3, happy to agree that. 2.4. Okay, and just finally on the review and the 2.4. Sorry, yeah. Oh yeah, we've got to nominate somebody. An onerous task for whoever. But can we have a nomination for 2.4 first of all? Ronnie and then Finlay.
Can I suggest that the chair this committee, with the standing the deputy as the vice chair, not named persons, but the chair of this committee and the vice chair of this committee?
It was, yeah. I'm likely to be gone and retired before it happens, so it's a standing post, okay? Elected chair and the substitute, obviously the vice chair.
I'll second that.
Members happy with that? Okay. I imagine it'll fill my diary. And finally, I think there was a point from Jane about a review mechanism. Just remind us of the review mechanism for leader in terms of the reporting back. I think it's maybe best to follow that mechanism.
What we would do is this would become part of the TES business plan, and we'd report progress annually through performance monitoring linked to our business plan through this committee.
Okay, so any decisions the group make will get reported back as part of the business plan. Okay, thank you very much. Same time next month, folks, for the next... No more Windafrm community benefit reports. Thank you very much, and thank you to officers for their patience. I think we got there in the end. Okay, members, can we turn to item number 7, which is Dumfries and Galloway review of visitor information centres. We're also joined by Paula MacDonald. Welcome, Paula, from Visit Scotland. Do any officers of Paula have anything to add to the report before us?
Yes, if I may, Chair. Just in terms of the VIC partnerships, Moffat and Gatehouse have fleet. If I could just update the figures for the Gatehouse of Fleet, and apologies to members, there was a change of staff at Visit Scotland and the reporting handover was not as robust as perhaps we would have wished. So there is an underreporting, so the figure for Gatehouse of Fleet should be approximately 41,000 in terms of visitors as opposed to 35,000. So we will amend that within the report, and that's 2013-14.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Okay, can I open it up to members' questions? Jane?
On that new piece of information we've got, is that based on the sort of grace field counting, which is that you count people who go into the cafe, or is it based on inquiries made at visitor centre?
Paula?
Those are based on footfall figures that we receive from the Gatehouse Fleet Centre, so they phone in on a monthly basis and they let us know what their visitor footfall has been through their actual door.
Okay, Graham?
Thank you, Chair. You'll not be surprised to hear it's regarding the Newton Stewart Visitor Centre being closed. I appreciate that 2,000 people a year, very difficult to justify keeping something to open. My worry is that your alternative venue, which is across the road in WRDC, doesn't really make it any easier for people to visit it, because parking is no better there than it's awful. The word I would put before it, but it's awful. Did you look at any other venues in Newton Stewart? I mean, to me, the natural place to put it is in the main car park, or down near the main car park, where you have the people go to park their cars when they come into Newton Stewart, because the streets are usually lined with cars. And has that been looked at? And if it's been disregarded, why?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the location, what I would just like to emphasise is that the way that visitors are actually looking at the region in terms of both pre and on-arrival market is very much towards digital tablets, iPhones, etc. The utilisation that we would look at WRDC is WRDC in the conversations and the brief conversations we've had already is that they do get a significant number of inquiries from visitors already. So the utilisation of that particular venue also allows us to maximise staff who already have dealings with visitors. But what we're also proposing is that we bring in a digital centre which will be updated directly via Visit Scotland's website, and that will be located in the WRDC premises as well, so that visitors who actually come in can get information from that which is updated through the VS local website, and it will give information for the whole of the Wigtownshire area. So it's actually providing enhanced provision. In addition, we will be working with Visit Scotland to maximise the uptake and the skills of the visitor centres in terms of places such as Coroctree. There's also racking at some of the other locations within Newton Stewart, where again we'll be doing enhanced leaflets, enhanced training and development for the staff. So the other big key thing to this is that the increase in provision will now be that it's across the whole of the year as opposed to being seasonal, which it currently is.
Didn't answer my question about whether they looked at any other venues, and if they disregarded them, why did they?
No, I think in terms of this option, we've gone for WRDC option here as the most expedient option at the moment that we can put in place to achieve this at the start of the season. Looking at other options is something which we probably can consider. We've said in here it's for on a 12-month basis to pilot this to see how it works. Happy as part of that to come back and with with full performance figures for members to look at how well that's worked, if it's successful or not. but also as part of that, look at other options.
Could I just come back again? So I take it that we did not, that no other options were looked at. Is that the answer I'm getting?
I think that's the point that officers are making, that this was seen as the best option, but obviously this has to be taken and reviewed on a regular basis. So if there are other alternative options you believe should be looked at, then
It can't be the best option, Chair, if they only looked at one. It's the only option. They've looked at. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
There are other options in the town, and I'm just concerned that they haven't been investigated.
could I suggest you pass those options on, or potential options on, and obviously review this on a regular basis. We have obviously got a decision to make in terms of getting this up and running for forthcoming year, but if there are alternatives, commitments. Okay, Ian.
Thanks. What exactly is the training that's given to visitor centre staff in terms of the time it's given and the quality, to make sure that they're fairly familiar with or very familiar with the tourist attractions in the location?
So every year when we have seasonal staff that are brought in, they go through a full induction process. So it tends to be a 2 or 3 day intensive training programme that they'll look at what the assets are, so what the tourism assets are within their immediate area of where they're trading. So that will be applied to the WRDC staff, and we'll go through what are your best assets, what are your visitor attractions, what does the food and drink offering look like, what then goes further afield. So it would be exactly the same sort of induction training that our seasonal staff for the current set of information centres would go through.
And is there some kind of monitoring process to ensure that the information they then give out and the way they engage with tourists is of a good quality?
We wouldn't have the ability to go in and do performance reviews. We do currently within the Visit Scotland Information Centre. We monitor and get feedback on data cards from visitors to see what was your customer experience. We also then carry out visitor surveys on the ground on a biannual basis. So we have people that would be out in the region and they would be talking to the visitors. So what was your stay like? What was your accommodation like? Did you visit a Visit Scotland Information Centre? How did you find that information provision? So there's ongoing surveys that happen throughout the year.
Okay, Finlay.
Just regards to what work has been done over the last 5 years, we've seen a drop-off, quite a substantial drop-off in some of the visitor centres, but less so in others. What's been done in the ones that haven't seen a drop-off compared to the ones that have, and what work have you done over the last 5 years to reduce the drop-off? I'm also just unsure, if we've got the contract with Visit Scotland and we give them a block grant, if you like, who's actually making the decision to close the current visitor centre and move it? Is it a council decision, or are we just not objecting to Visit Scotland moving it? I'm not just sure why we've got if we give Visit Scotland the money to carry to manage these, why is it our decision to actually close the one in Newton Stewart?
Chair, I'm going to come in and answer the first question, which was around what do we do to further promote the use of the information centres. So across all of our print and all of our media, our digital channels, visitscotland.com, we advertise the Visit Scotland Information Centres. So you'll see on the Dumfries and Galloway regional pages that it's highlighted when visitors arrive into the region, where can you go to get additional assistance. So there's a full underlying marketing promotional campaign to drive visitors to those information centres, so that when they get here, they've got a friendly face, they've got a real live human being that's tailor-making what their holiday could look like when they're in the region. In terms of the mitigation, if we look at the national performance across the information centre network, we're seeing a decrease in footfall, and that's because consumer behaviour is completely different. People are very self-sufficient now. So although we've seen a 66% drop in visitor footfall to Newton Stewart, conversely, we've seen a 305% increase in web visits on the Dumfries and Galloway pages. So we've seen that go from, in terms of the figures, we've seen that go from about 93,000 visits to the Dumfries and Galloway web pages to about 377,000 in 1 year alone. So there is mitigation and there is marketing that we can do for those centres to try and drive footfall, but you can't stem the flow of how consumers behave, and they do use their smartphones. They do a lot of their research before they get here, and they already have a plan of what they're going to do. And I think when you see the bigger hubs, when you look at the breakdown of the bookings and what people are going into the larger footfalls, there's a lot of ticketing involved in there. So they're going for some transportation solutions. They're going to buy tickets as well. So there's different makeup for every.
Just in the back of it, so why have we got some that are bucking the trend? Why are some not dropping off at such a level? Have you done anything different in Gretna or the likes of Stranraer where we haven't seen it as big a drop off? Have you taken different mitigation actions in some of the visitor centres and not in others?
No, to go into Gretna, we had to close Southway a couple of years ago, which you'll have remembered it came through the committee. We feel that the increase in footfall through Gretna is down to the fact that we don't have the Southway operation now, so people are still looking for information on Dumfries and Galloway, and their first available port of call was Gretna, so that's why we've seen a significant increase there. Stranraer, we're knowing a lot around the ticketing, and there's a very high percentage around transportation links, and that's why we've seen a slight uplift in Stranraer.
Second point.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the redesign, we totally take on board the fact that visitors have a different way of actually accessing information. But we felt that it was particularly important to maintain a presence in Newton Stewart in terms of, as Paula said, actual people here who could talk to visitors on arrival. So it was in discussion and consultation with Visit Scotland that rather than have a closure, it is a redesign so that there is still a physical presence of people who can have face-to-face interaction with visitors in Newton Stewart, because we felt that was still important.
So in effect, are we agreeing to a change in the service level agreement with Visit Scotland? Is that why it's back to this committee rather than Visit Scotland taking that decision on their own?
That's correct.
Okay, members, will we go to the recommendations? Okay, members happy to note 2.1? 2.2, happy to agree the redesign of the service in Newton Stewart? Agreed, and happy to agree to 2.4. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks to Paul and officers for dealing with the questions. Okay, members, can we turn to item number 8, which is the local development plan, further items of supplementary guidance for our consideration today. We've got Steve to answer any members' questions. His team. Two minders to keep Steve right. Okay, can I ask officers if they've got anything to add to the report?
Nothing to add, Chair.
Okay, can I open it up to members' questions? Ian.
Happy with the report, Chairman. I just wonder, we've got a seminar on the 9th April. Would it be any chance adding these to the list that we'll look at? We're 4 weeks into the consultation at that point, and it would save going back and using the same approach. Again, if it comes up at that point, we've got a load of questions, and we need, it saves us revisiting the same points twice, I would say. Could we add this to the list? If we could add this to the list, I'd be more than happy just to, let's be carte blanche.
Pick that up, Steve.
Yeah, there's no reason why we can't add that into the seminar, bearing in mind that the consultation period won't have finished. So in our experience, actually, most of the comments don't actually come in until the last week of consultation. So you'd have to bear in mind that we're not going to be able to update you on any feedback or consultation responses that you might want to take account of in looking at changes to these three.
Ian? As long as we get a chance to bring them up, because my questions are probably more appropriate in a seminar type setting, is what I would say, rather than in committee. So you can bring some of the points up there. I'll leave it to them.
Fine. Okay, Jim?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. The only thing I would bring up is the next step in consultations. Is it intended to send copies of this to the community councils, even electronically, so that if they want to print them off and have a look at them, they can do so. If they don't, well, that's up to them. The only other thing I would say is I'm happy enough with the content as it stands with the three, and for a change, I would just like to actually congratulate officers, especially in the Dark Skies one, as regarding the amount of information that's in there and the amount of advice that it actually gives on the site and the light to stop actual light pollution going back up into the sky.
Okay, thanks for that, Jim.
Thank you, Chair. Certainly, we'll notify individually community councils the fact that these are being released for public consultation. We do that electronically. We don't send hard copies of documents out any longer, but we'll certainly do that. And comments on the Dark Skies Park lighting guide are noted. Certainly, my own team put a good deal of effort into that, but also I think we need to acknowledge the input from our colleagues in DG First as well, who contributed to particularly to the design details of that.
Thanks. Okay, I've got Jane and then Ronnie.
Thank you. I'm just going to echo Councillor McClung's remarks about the dark sky guidance, which I think is first class. I think, however, if you were a member of the public and you were looking at a black and white version of what's on page 86, I think it's is it 86? Yes. I think people might find that quite confusing. I mean, the coloured one is great, really, really good. But if I was looking at that, I would say, I just don't think I quite get what's being said.
The red stuff's the bad stuff. The green stuff's the stuff we like. We would encourage people to use the green stuff.
Thank you, Chairman, for your very clear exposition. I'm really, really grateful, and I see where your previous profession comes through. I'm very, very grateful. I'm just maybe suggesting that in black and white it doesn't really come through quite so well.
I suppose with colour copies available.
Well, we'll certainly have a look at the presentation of that. I must admit that when I went through my own copies of the committee papers, that jumped out at me as well. So we'll have a look at how that is presented. As you say, it makes perfect sense in colour, but not in black and white.
Thanks, Chair. Just on that same point, I presume there's Steve, and following on from Councillor McClung's point as well, that this will be presented on the Council's website for people to view, and that particular copy should be in colour in any case.
Yes, it's only hard copies that would be in the version that here on the website will be the colour version.
Okay, Ronnie.
Thank you. Again, this is a good report, and again, it should have been in colour. One thing I do question is, 2.3 is nominate a member to act as council's champion. I don't see the need for that at all. I mean, it's just committees. Sorry. Oh, I'm on the wrong one, am I?
We don't have a supplementary
I've done
champion
Sorry.
yet.
Sorry.
We might need one.
Chair, just give me an idea.
I tell you what, there's a lot. Councillor Nicholas. Supplementary guidance champion, Councillor Nicholas. I tell you what. So
my apologies. My apologies. I was sleeping, obviously.
Okay, do we have any comments? Patsy, sorry. Oh, sorry. Okay, are members happy to go to the recommendations? Okay. Are we happy to agree? 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, and 2.5. Okay, and just to echo members, thanks for the work that's gone into I think another good example is a supplementary guidance. Much appreciated. It's very clear for members, apart from the odd diagram, but apart from that, it's very clear and good guidance. We'll see the responses coming back. Thanks very much. Okay, can we turn to item number 9? Ronnie's already there, but the rest of us can catch up. Put your hand up, yeah. Okay, item number 9 is the Dumfries and Galloway Active Travel Strategy. We've been asked to adopt the strategy that's set out in the appendix. I ask Harry and Douglas if they've got anything they wish to add to the report. Okay, we'll put it up to members' questions. Jim and then Ronnie.
It's not really a question, it's a plea. Under 3.9, the second bullet point, page 98, says infrastructure. It's essential that the infrastructure is extensive, accessible and connected. And then in 1 and 2 at 3.10, develop infrastructure improvement that encourages active travel and then promotes cycling. The director already knows, I think he'll see where I'm coming from with this one. We have a missing link on the A75 between Glenluce and Ra. Because of the way it's situated, the new roads actually give you a cycle path or a walkway where you will not be on the main road until you get to what is known as Plantain Farm, then ceases, and the path doesn't start again until you get to Ain Hallow, which is about a mile away, round a bad corner. It's about the worst corner between Glenluce and Stranraer. There is an alternative route to go cycling, but it's away down the back road, and it's about 4 times longer, at least 4 times longer than actually getting the direct route along the side of the 75 from Plantain to Ain Hallow. Can we consider actually looking at that? I know it will be a problem with Transport Scotland as well because they do the 75, but if we could actually try and progress that with Transport Scotland. I did try when they were doing the Draggett bypass to actually just get them to do a bit.
Chair, it's a subject we'll continue to press with Transport Scotland and the local manager.
Ronnie and then Jane.
Yeah, I still think that's. I should have been in colour as well. I know, but that's what I get for looking at the back page of one report and the front page of another. Do you think, yeah, I'm quite happy with the recommendations, and I'll go back to what I said before. The only thing I don't agree with is, you know, the 2.3. I don't see why we should need to nominate, you know, another champion for this. It's, I mean, it's this committee's responsibility to ensure that the proposals are implemented, and I'm quite sure the chair and the vice chair, they'll see that through themselves. And it's on the basis that, you know, this is a strategic priority for this committee, so I don't see any need for this.
Ask on that, presumably the action plan will then be built into the department business plan, and that will get reported back as part of the business plan. Is that?
Chair, as the report also states, the implementation of the action plan is the responsibility of a number of partners, as well as the department specifically in terms of the action plan itself. There are a number of actions within the plan which are the responsibility of various partners, including health and Sederunt. In terms of champion, a number of funding sources for active travel projects nowadays are competitive, and it would be a great advantage to have a political figurehead, if you like, for taking forward bids into some of these funds, and that's one of the main reasons why we're looking for a nominated figurehead politically.
Ronnie?
Yeah, and I mean, I understand what you're saying there, but I still think, you know, the chair, it's like everything else, the chair and the vice chair of this committee actually lead on these things, so I mean, they can be the figureheads if you want, and, you know, and the strategic priority is this committee's, it's not a champion's.
You're laughing because I haven't got a bike. I do have a bike, it's in the garage. Jane.
I actually understand where the lead is coming from, because I think what we're looking at really is active travel plans which reflect upon our own areas. And that leads me on to page 117, which is that the action plan does permit for considering further 20-mile-per-hour speed limits. And if we're going to have if we're going to have active walking and cycling, I really think we've got to actually, I think, probably get in line with people, which is that more people are wanting slower speeds in towns. I really do, to make things safer. I think parents feel safer, and I think if people are elderly, it's easier to see things coming and all the rest of it. So I would just like to say that I think it's absolutely right that it's here to provide further 20-mile-per-hour speed limits. But, Chairman, I think that we should be looking at this, because it's like wading through treacle, this whole 20-mile-per-hour business. And I just would like to put down a marker that I think as a council we ought to be considering what we can do to increase this. Everyone else appears to be doing it, and we might be being left behind a little bit.
Point of emphasis is often on schools, but I think residential areas are really valid for this 20-mile-an-hour zone. Ronnie, do you want to come in on that point? Is that?
It was the same point, maybe a bit flippant, but there's a big increase in people on racing bikes, and they go way over 20 mile an hour. You know, so are we going to restrict them to 20 mile an hour within an urban conurbation, because they do go fast, and there's 50 of them, you can't overtake them.
Over 20 mile an hour, you shouldn't be overtaking them anyway. But okay. Any other members? Okay. Happy to go to the recommendations, folks. Okay, are members happy to note 2.1? Okay, and 2.2? Okay, in terms of sorry, Jean?
Well, it was just this 20 mile per hour. Do we look at that annually? It says so in the action. Oh, sorry. We do look at it annually as to what we're doing, and to whether or not we should be saying we might really add into that annual look an examination of what other areas are doing, not simply what we ourselves have been agreed, because that will leave us in the dark ages. As far as
that's on the active travel strategy, or is it specifically on the 20 mile an hour zones?
Well, you see, the action plan talks about the 20 mile an hour policy on page 117, and I'm really wanting to add in that we ought to be including what other areas are doing and upgrade our policy, rather than simply saying this is our policy and these are the numbers we've done. If you see what I mean, it's more a considering policy as opposed to monitoring our current policy.
Harry, do you want to come in?
Chair, there is a policy in place, and it's as noted in the report, it's the responsibility of my colleagues in network strategy. However, I'm sure a review of policy in comparison to
other areas. And 2.3. Ian, sorry, come in. Sorry.
I was going to echo what Ronnie said earlier in regards to the chair and vice chair. I think that's the strongest political lead you can actually put on. And it's right, especially when it comes to European funding. They need that political point of contact.
Members, Ronnie, do you want to come in on that?
Fine, just that we don't have a champion.
Rather the chair and vice chair take on that responsibility. Are members happy with that? So we'll note that as the chair and vice chair take on responsibility to champion the active travel policy in Dumfries. Okay, members? Okay, members, can we turn to item number 10, which is providing members with information on the proposed new taxi card scheme. Obviously, the scheme was a key part of the budget which was agreed in February, and how we take this forward is set out in the report. Again, we've got Harry and Douglas. Do you wish to add anything to the report before members? Harry?
Chair, just to advise that last Monday we wrote out to the existing taxi card holders on the scheme, advising them of the new arrangements and seeking their confirmation of how they wanted to continue. We've had 772 responses, of which about 60% have opted for the vouchers solution and 40% have gone for the card planes taxi. We'll continue to receive returns from taxi card holders, and we'll also be seeking to make the scheme known to non-card holders going forward. But the priority has been to ensure that existing card holders have made their views known before the start of the scheme on 1st of April.
You can open up to members. Jack?
Thanks, Colin. I'm really pleased to see that we're now going for vouchers as well, because the number of complaints we had about taxi card machines not working in the past, horrendous. But I see it's considered most firms in the area would participate. My only problem with that is that, would have been that not all drivers would have participated in it, but I'm sure that will be rectified with the companies themselves. I know that Douglas will be having a quiet word in their ears, and it would be pleasing to see that with the vouchers, a list of the films that are going to be sent out to those that have got the vouchers, a list of the films that will accept them.
Jack, thanks for that point. Jim?
Thanks, Chair. Can Harry maybe give members a list of the participating companies? I think it's great that we're now agreeing to extend this through the whole of the region, and it give members an opportunity to see who's actually taking part, maybe even in some circumstances approach providers that have currently decided maybe not to do that, to see if they'd reconsider, given the benefits it would be to the more or less able of the folk that are looking to use it.
Harry? Douglas, sorry.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, Councillor Dempster, we're still working with the taxi firms, as Councillor Grooms mentioned. We are planning to send lists out to everyone as soon as we've got everyone on board. And the ones who indicated they're a bit worried about the scheme, we're talking to them at the moment as well, trying to get as many on board as possible. But certainly on the week commencing the 23rd of March, we'll be sending everybody information on who's on the scheme, and that will include members.
It's obviously a moving feast, but it is encouraging to see so many taxi companies signing up already, so that's certainly encouraging. Graham?
Yeah. Are there going to be some companies that will not participate in the scheme, or just refuse point blank to participate? And if so, how is that going to be advertised on their taxis? Because you don't want somebody getting into the taxi with a voucher or with a taxi card and then get to the other end and can't pay the fare, and because the taxi's not willing to take whatever they're offering them other than cash.
I think there's a lot more obviously taking part in this scheme and took part in the previous scheme, but I think Douglas want to comment on that.
Chair, as Douglas has said, we will be advising taxi card holders as to who's participating in the scheme. The vast majority of bookings are likely to be made by telephone rather than on street in any case. But we can't oblige firms to say they don't take the vouchers. We haven't at the minute made any plans to have any stickers for cabs to have in, on their windows to say they do accept the vouchers. I don't anticipate it being a major issue. If it is, then we'll look again at.
Okay, any other members? Okay, members, can we go to the recommendation? Members happy to note the recommendation. Okay, members, I don't have any other business. Can I thank you for your attendance?